Welcome to the Law, Your Money and You. I'm Roberta Saphire, an attorney in Sharon, Massachusetts, and really welcome to Live at the Library with my co-host,
Camille Barron. I'm a financial coordinator, also from Sharon, Massachusetts. And this has been a while since we've done Live at the Library. We're very happy to be here again. And we have a couple of guests tonight, once again, who have returned after being guests in the past, at least twice each.
Really?
A couple of topics that people have asked us about because they've heard them on our program. One of them is employment law, and
Right.
people are very interested in employment law. They might be working.
The ones who work. The ones who work.
The ones who work, or the ones who don't work. Maybe because they're not happy that they're not working.
Right.
And employers. And regardless of whether you're working or not, it's very important that you have money in the bank.
Yes, and we're giving these out to every person who's here. From Eastern Bank, we have, well, why don't we go right to it? And also Emily Smith Lee, attorney, wrote this book on employment law. That's why we're all here too, because she's giving out a free book to everybody who's here. But let's talk to our guests. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have Al over there and Emily over here. And we're going to go back and forth just so that we can make sure we have everything covered. So, Emily, let's start with you, because ladies first. Tell us a little bit about your book and how it came to be, etc.
Sure. So this is, I've been representing employers and employees in litigation for 7 years. This is sort of a compilation of not everything there is to know about employment law, but the things that I'm pretty sure my clients or the people that they've sued wished they knew before something went wrong. So it's a quick read. Can't answer all of your questions, but hopefully cover some of the highlights.
And it's very, very easy reading. It's very good, too, for anybody that's interested, which would be anybody. And combining that, employers, to be employers, need money. They need money for whether they're starting up a small business or whether they're continuing a small business or a large business, and that's where Al Inglesi comes in. He's vice president of Eastern Bank. And tell our folks what you do.
Okay, thank you ladies for having me. Pleasure to be here. I am a commercial lender. I'm what they call a business banker in the commercial field, lending field. I do all sorts of loans, whether lines of credit to startups or to businesses, or we do a lot of real estate lending. Just breezing through Emily's book, and a couple things that caught my eye was startups. So we do lend to startups with a good business plan to get them up and running, mainly for working capital to get them going. There's a lot of things in here that non-compete and different things that I deal with all the time as a lender. Non-compete simply is that, you know, if somebody's selling a business to another partner, that they can't compete against it, that you know, that they'll stay different territories, that they won't lend in the same areas. But I'm on the road every day. I typically meet with 2 to 3 business owners a day. You know, today I was at a doggy daycare, I was at a taekwondo studio, and a dental office. So I'm pretty much on the road every day, meeting with business owners in pretty much mostly Massachusetts, Southern Rhode Island area.
That's interesting, because there's 3 different things. But Emily, what do they all have in common concerning employment laws?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one, huh?
All right, am I better? I mean, I think
I like that.
they're all interrelated. I mean, employment is the most expensive thing that a business is going to do, right? From paying their employees, figuring out how to crack that nut, and it can be the most expensive problem that they have.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong with the way the compensation is set up in a startup and relationships fall apart, I don't know how you look at it as a banker, but if I were lending people money, I would look at their employment policies as one of the biggest risks that they could have.
Interesting. Like, can you give an example, Emily?
Sure. I helped a company that at the startup phase had its 5 or 6 key founding employees agree to defer their compensation. They agreed to defer compensation to the tune of $100,000 to $200,000 a year.
What do you mean defer compensation?
Meaning they say, we agree not to get paid until the company starts to make money. It turns out that violates the Wage Act.
Oh,
Really?
And when things fall apart, if the business doesn't work out, if the relationships fall apart, that turns into a 7-figure liability
wow.
for the company and for
You mean
the
they
officers.
still owe the people the money?
Really?
Yep.
Hmm.
What do you think about that, Al? Have you heard anything?
Well,
That seems
a lot of loans that I do based on startups and stuff typically are structured so that the owner's comp would pay the bank loan back a percentage. So if the bank loan says $30,000 a year in income, and the owner takes a reasonable salary, $40,000, $50,000 reasonable salary, then he pays the bank back. And let's say the bottom line of the net income of that business was $80,000. Before he can take a distribution of that $80,000, he has to make sure he pays the bank back that $30,000 before he does the distribution. So we'll allow him to take a salary and then pay the bank back and then take an additional distribution. Another thing too that Emily had just brought up, if it's a single business owner, what we're really concerned about too is are they it's key man life insurance. Are they, God forbid something should happen to the owner of the business, what happens to the business? If it's a key person, is there a family involved? Is there a succession plan? These are all things that, the questions asked every day.
Well, what would happen in the case of a key person, in terms, let's say the loan balance is still outstanding?
Sure.
Would typically the
If you have
heirs-
a single dental practice and something should happen to the dentist, what happens to the loan? If he's not able to perform his day-to-day procedures, maybe they have other people there who are doing the cleanings and stuff, but if they need a dentist there to do the major stuff, what happens? Is there another dentist coming in? So we go through all these things to make sure there is, a succession plan. Believe it or not, we do a lot of church lending, a lot of religious lending, and the reverend, the pastor, whoever it may be that we're lending. What happens if something should happen to them? Is there a second person? Is there an organization behind the church that backs up, that brings a separate pastor in? The pastor goes on vacation. There's all sorts of scenarios, but that's one of the more important things. We're looking at succession plans for
Good.
businesses.
Emily, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
Two follow-ups, and one to your point about you arrange for the bank to get paid back. You can do that. That's the crazy thing about the trouble that companies get into, and that's why the startup chapter in here is you can legally have people wait to get more compensation. But if you say it's a salary and you're deferring it, you're in a world of trouble. You can do what you're describing
Right.
easily.
Yeah.
So it's using the words.
Well,
It's like the difference between replace and repair. If you repair something, they'll let you do it. If you replace it, they don't. It's the same thing.
The simple way to do it is to say you've got a minimum salary, like your draw
Right.
or whatever,
Yeah.
and if things go well, you get more money. It's just harder to get good people without something that sounds as concrete as here's your salary, you
Yeah.
just defer it.
Would you have people who will work and not get paid and wait? Or just,
It
it's just the
exists.
owners do that?
Do I have people? No.
No, I mean,
I try
you
not to
have
do things
clients.
that people get sued for. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's-
Sure.
And it doesn't end well,
No.
typically.
At that point, we look at the capability of a spouse to cover the household expenses. So for instance, if you had a startup restaurant and the owner is only able to make $10,000 or $15,000 a year, and we gave them a loan, we're giving them a loan based on the capability of the business paying back the loan. But we may look at it as, let's say the wife's an attorney and the wife makes $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year. She can cover the household expenses. She can pay the day-to-day. So that's more apt to us. Lending, as opposed to the husband and wife both in the business and the business not making money, then there's an issue.
Yeah.
Especially if they have children, how they're gonna make their house payments, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So
How often do you check to see that they're doing this in your investment?
we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't give the loan. So loan has to go through a structure. When typically I collect tax returns and I collect balance sheets and profit and loss statements. We need to make sure that there's enough income coming in to support the loan, the business, and to support their personal, their mortgages, their car payments, their children, so those are all things that we go through, the guidelines that the banks go through to make sure that we can give a loan to somebody. Because we can't give them a
I
loan. if
always
they-
thought they
can't
did
repay.
it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah,
It's
you
interesting.
if somebody has 3 or 4 kids, I mean, that's $10,000, $15,000 a year in expenses per child. between schooling and clothing and dental and insurance, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, so you can't, you have to show that you can support it.
Oh, a question.
If you have someone, let's say someone has a loan and they also, they're an employer and they have a couple of employees, does the structure of the business determine whether they're liable personally for either repaying the loan or to be sued?
So I'll take my piece of that, and I'm sure you've got your piece of that. In my piece of that, that's a matter of law. The president and the treasurer of a company are personally liable for wage claims. I'm imagining in your world, it's a matter of contract that you get a personal guarantee.
Yeah, so my world is that the bank on loans are going to have a unlimited personal guarantee of any owner 20% or more of the company. So if someone is 81-19, we don't really care about the 19% owner. We care about 80% or more.
Do we ask their wives to sign too, and anybody else?
Well, it could be the wife's company. It could be spouse's company.
Say it's the husband's company.
Not if she's not an owner of the company or he's not an owner of the company. No, any owner 20% or more is going to sign on a note, unlimited personal guarantee. They're going to guarantee that loan based on how much the loan is. So if the loan's $100,000 and the business goes belly up and they owe us, we gave them $100,000 3 years ago and now the balance is $60,000, we have the rights to $60,000 worth of his, her, both, whatever it is, whether it's the business assets. A lot of times when we lend to businesses, they have what they accounts receivables. So they have the receivables that are out there that other companies, so electrician, he's billing and he's owed a certain amount of money, a contractor, any of those. We have the right to go after those receivables that they have. That's typically what it is. We're not going after
Do you
something
ever
typically
have
personal.
their home, like their mortgage
No.
on their homes from that? No, just their business?
Yeah, banks aren't into it to go after homes and go after personal belongings. They'll go and work out years before that. Workout simply is, hey, what can you afford to pay us for the next year or two? Can you make it interest only for the next year or two before you start paying us the principal back? I mean, the banks are going to do anything they can to try to have the loan work out,
And if your entrepreneur comes to see a lawyer beforehand, sorry Al, but we'll make sure their home's homesteaded before they sign that personal guarantee.
Yeah.
How much is in the homestead now?
500,000.
500,000?
Yeah.
That means that that means
Yeah.
that it can't be attached or anything up to
I mean,
500?
as you'll see, most business owners have several different other LLCs, or the real estate is in one LLC, the company's incorporated, so that there's no commingling of assets. So that if a tenant is suing them, it can't go after all their assets. It can only go after the assets of that LLC if it's a tenant, or most business owners,
Interesting.
the house could be in a separate name, the wife's name, the husband's name, and the business is in the vice versa's name, just so they can't go after any personal assets.
Do you ever have, I was going to ask a question from before, like employer or employee, do you ever have it where the children are employed for whatever reason, like young ones, like 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, to safeguard some of the profit? How does that work? Or is that a loaded question?
No, it's an interesting question. I mean, there are some very limited industries in which you can hire young children to agriculture in certain circumstances. I've never encountered it. It's not common here.
Well, how about in an office? You have the kid do office work and then you take them off?
The only time that's a loaded question. The only time,
You're shocking my sensibilities. Child labor laws.
the only time I've ever heard of child labor laws was a local restaurant, and I don't know if they were about 10-year-old boys. The father's son would come in with his buddies, the little kids would come in, and they'd walk around the parking lot and clean the parking lot. And if they picked up enough cigarette butts and cigars in the parking lot to fill the can, they got a free pizza.
Penny a piece of paper, it used to be.
You know what I mean?
used to make my children
That's about the only labor laws, and they were working for food.
All right. Well, this is something that some of our viewers have asked about. It's related to what Emily has said. But let's say that an employer employs someone who's undocumented, okay? So that in itself Is that illegal?
So the employer faces certain exposure to the immigration
What do you mean
authorities.
undocumented?
Well, what we would call an illegal immigrant.
An immigrant without a green card or a visa, a valid work
Or
visa.
visa?
So the employer has exposure that's beyond employment law.
Mhm.
That's between them and ICE and the federal government. But it's important for people to understand, a lot of employers don't get this. It doesn't take that employee out of any of the protections of the law.
Oh.
So just because, you can't turn around and say, you can't complain about minimum wage, or you can't complain about overtime because you're undocumented. Practically, it's tricky for the employee to bring a claim in that situation.
Yeah, well, they have to worry about themselves
That's
being.
interesting.
Right, but they have the same rights.
They do.
Really? Well, if they're not there properly or something, and they have no right to be there, why would they have, I'm just curious, why would they have the same rights?
They have the same rights with respect to employment laws, because employment laws are about the rights that you have if you're providing services to somebody for pay. It's not, the legality of the status is a question of federal law.
Now,
No.
what if you did a non-compete, because you mentioned non-competes, what if you did non-competes with people, your employees, not just your partners, but your employees, and one of them is undocumented, you don't want them to open up a business next to you or go to work for somebody next to you. How does that fit in?
So the big answer, how does that fit in with respect to whether somebody's undocumented or not? It doesn't matter. They can still sign contracts. They're still human beings, and they still have the ability to agree to something and be bound to it. As a practical matter, people tend to pick fights less in the legal environment when they're undocumented. But the non-competes would apply the same to anybody, which is a whole other long answer about when they're enforceable and when they're not.
I was just thinking, how do you sue somebody like that if you really don't know where they are?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So there seems like there's some overlap between
Yeah.
the banking, the lending part of banking, and being aware of the employment aspects of it, and particularly for a startup, it sounds like, because that would be a case where someone maybe has not yet had the experiences where they would know already, right? So if you were advising somebody on a startup, what are some of the things?
Most startups typically could be an employer of the auto body shop, and the retiring boss, the owner, loves the work of somebody working for him and says, I'm going to be selling, I'm 65 or 67, I'm going to be selling the business. Are you interested in, and the kid's 35 years old, or the woman's 35 years old, it's been working there for 4 or 5 years, the owner knows he's got a good work ethic. That owner coming to me, the new buyer coming to me, is considered a startup. Now, he may have worked there for 5 years, 10 years. The owner goes away on vacation, the kid may run the shop, same thing in any. So a startup typically isn't a day one startup. A startup is typically, could be someone working at a restaurant, buys a restaurant. So it could be somebody who's retiring. So a startup necessarily doesn't mean it's somebody going from one experience to another, which does happen. You can have somebody in the tech field that gets burnt out and says, you know what, I want to do something completely different. I'm 40 years old, and I've been doing this for 15 years, and I'm getting burnt out. I want to go to a whole different extreme, and I want to own a pizza shop. From techie to a pizza shop. Those things happen, but startups aren't necessarily ground up. It could be somebody, most likely in my world, it's somebody coming to me that's already been working at a facility.
Oh, I see.
And just moving up to take over the ownership. Quite common.
Now, what about with the economy being the way it is? People are losing jobs, especially you might see more of the older people over 50. Have you found that there's more activity now in startups, however you want to describe it?
No, there used to be a lot of dirty words 6 or 7 years ago, contractors and plumber, and only because they were all tied to the spec building that was going on in 2008. But as you drive around now, those are dynamite roads. If you're a plumber, you're backed up for months. If you're an electrician, if you're a builder, just drive into Boston, look your left and your right hand side, everywhere you go, there's new buildings being put up. It's a great time. The economy's good. They're saying things are looking great for the next, up to 3 years, so 2019-ish. Everything looks good. They haven't met the demands yet of what's needed. I mean, I see most businesses now, as I mentioned, 2 to 3 times a day, I'm meeting with business owners. I mean, most businesses are booming. I mean, I can't think of any trades, besides maybe the printing companies and things like that, but most trades, labor as far as, the electricians, the plumbers, the builders, I mean, they're all booming. It's a great trade to be in, good time to be in.
Emily, what do you see more of in your employment contracts and questions?
You mean in terms of
where is it going? Do you get more white collar non-competes, or do you get workman's comp, or what is out there now?
So it's all over the map. I don't do workman's comp. That's more of a personal injury specialty that lots of people smarter than I about that do.
I don't know, you're pretty smart.
We see a lot of activity on non-competes. They tend to be overused, and so people come in with non-competes that may be overbroad or may not be appropriate. I will say one trend I see is just a demographic trend, the aging of the workforce. We see a lot more people than I used to see in their, upper 50s, early 60s losing their jobs, not quite ready to retire.
Yeah.
So I think there's sort of I don't want to use the word renaissance as it relates to age discrimination, but there's something going on. But we've seen a lot more of those calls.
Some of them voluntary and maybe some not voluntary.
Right.
Yeah, technology's taking over so much of the world today. I mean, you typically, when I'm in the bank, most of the time, most of the people coming into the bank are middle-aged. I mean, you really, very rarely you
What's
see.
middle-aged?
Don't say
Well, I mean, you can see, I mean, kids these days, as far as the transfer and the money, they're just doing it right on their phone. They could pay their brother back $10 right on their phone. And the software today is it's incredible. You don't see typically.
So what's middle-aged?
Hey, you're not going to get off.
I don't really know, but I mean, I'm just saying, my kid, 55. There you go. My son's, 20 and my daughter's 17, and I mean, kids these days are totally different. I mean, they don't go to the bank. They don't do things like we used to do.
They do it all on their phone.
Yes. Yeah.
What I'm waiting for is a robot. I want a robot.
You want a robot? That's coming soon.
I bet we can employ a robot.
It's the same as the post office as far as, kids mailing letters. I mean,
I don't know.
they mail the letter. They don't know what a stamp is, pretty much. I mean, they don't mail bills. They don't do anything. They call it a sticky thing.
I know, isn't that
They have no idea. They don't do it.
because it's easier to email and attach.
My son has got a great internship this summer with a local celebrity, let's say. Can't say his name, but he does coach a big team around this area. Anyway, I said, you need to send a thank you card to who just interviewed you at a local PR firm. And,
I said, what's that?
like, where do I get the card?
I do them by email.
I mean, they don't write. I mean, everything that they do at school, their books, everything's on their laptops.
They don't teach spelling in
It's a
school
totally different,
anymore.
we're getting off topic, but it's a totally different world out there now.
But it does point to, that's in a way, it's a good segue. I wonder if expectations of younger employees are very different than when you get a little bit older.
They are. I mean, look, when I talk to small business owners about employment issues, there's a huge discussion that's probably unfair going on around millennials. Whether they're a totally different ballgame than,
Now,
than any other
millennials are
generation.
kids that are born 2000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the.
They don't operate before the hours of 10 a.m.
Oh, they don't?
That's a joke.
It depends where they came from. I got one that wants to come in at 9 a.m.
Well, it's like anything else, right? Any category of people will
Yeah,
have variations
isn't
in
that
between, but that is sort of the bias.
Have you ever had any young people come in about their employment issues and this is this and this is that and they're looking for advice?
Oh, yeah.
Give an example.
Two biggest examples for younger employees who come to see us is, wage problems are all over the place. everybody gets the overtime classifications wrong. And it's easy to do with teenage workers and workers in their young 20s who are not experienced. It's just, throw them on a salary and have them work 50 hours a week and not pay them. So that happens not just to young people, but to young people a lot. The other thing I see with the younger workers is the overuse of non-competes. I mean, I kid you not, there are people who are making sandwiches who are subject to non-compete agreements.
And typically, a non-compete, just for viewers who may not have been familiar with it, can you just kind of describe
Sure.
what it really says?
So a non-compete is meant to protect either an employer's trade secrets or their goodwill. Classic example is a salesperson who does a route for 15 years and everybody knows him as the Acme so-and-so guy. And you've got a non-compete that says for a year or two, you're not going to compete with us because we don't want to lose our goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
Question its validity when it's applied to people making sandwiches.
Yeah.
Or,
In other words,
any
can
number
somebody
of
else do their
trades.
job? It's probably, it's a
Right, and
specialty.
there's a big tension because you can only protect those two things. You can't just protect the fact that you don't want competition.
Mm-hmm.
Because people have to earn a living.
We're nearing the end. I want, and this is not, you've got to be kidding, but this is unemployment law. Who came up with the name Rules of the Road? Because this is really a great book. I mean, for the people who are getting it tonight, they will be thrilled. They can use this and go to the Eastern Bank and get a loan. Or a savings. I'll send you. But how did this, I mean, I love the book. I think it's great. That's why we invited you. Because it's an excellent book. It's written so that you can understand it and you do know your stuff. Because I checked. But how do we get the title, Rules of the Road, and then there's a little wrong way?
So the title, True Confessions, the only thing holding me up from publishing this after I finished writing it was
Yeah.
thinking of a title. So I just made one up.
You're kidding.
The wrong way go back is the guy who published it gave me this nice peaceful picture of the road and I said, that's too peaceful. There's scary stuff in here, you need to put a wrong way sign on it.
That's good.
Yeah, well, the color is, it's good thing our TV is in blue, of course that's a sapphire blue. So that's good. We're almost to the point of winding up.
So
Do you
soon?
want- Yeah, do you want to say anything about You've Got to Be Kidding? You got any last words for us? Let's start with Al. Al's so great.
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. I enjoyed learning a little bit from Emily.
Yeah, how do they get these
Quite cool.
nice piggy banks?
They can go over to the bank, speak to Mike Carey, the branch manager, and tell him he wants one. Tell him they want one.
Tell them Al sent you.
I think they hand them out to the kids.
Yeah, they had, yeah, if anybody wants, we've been doing, our police officers are our friends, but we wanted to concentrate on you two fellas tonight, people who've got to be kidding. No, I'm not kidding, got to be
Can you
kidding.
take a question from the audience?
Okay, one question.
I had a question, I was just curious, though. When somebody
come
is,
up.
when you're approaching some people because they've approached you about, we're looking for some financing, and I got a deal with my fellow colleague here, he's been here for a number of years, and we've got this put together, and you start asking him, what's the arrangement? And he starts telling you, I'm looking for, we've agreed upon 200,000, and I'm gonna do this, I'll give him a little accommodation paper back if necessary, or whatever, but I'm looking to borrow, have him borrow this amount of money. Is there any kind of a formula, or for example, with real estate, if you have income property and you got 50,000 a year, it varies, but some people might say, well, that's worth 8 to 10 times the income, anywhere from 4 to 500,000.
Yep.
That's what I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
But how do you know, or do you ever really know, how are you comfortable making a loan when they're asking for 300,000? Well, how much do you make a year?
Well,
I make 50. Well, that's 6 times. I don't know. Is it worth it?
Well, two different things. One, you brought up real estate. Real estate's based on appraisals. So we're gonna hire, if the loan's approved, if it cash flows, if there's tenants in there, we're gonna have an appraisal company, environmental company, look at it, they're gonna go out, they're gonna appraise the property. And just as you said, that formula is pretty much right on, anywhere from 8 to 10 times of revenue. So you mentioned 50,000 a year in revenue, the property's probably worth anywhere, again, we're throwing darts, but it's probably worth between 400 and 500,000. That's typically what it is. We're then basing it on the appraisal. The appraisal comes in at 500,000, we're gonna lend 75, 80%, 90% of of the value of that property based on the cash flow. The second part of that question was, and I'm not sure if this is what you meant, but if you had a business loan, a company's looking for a business loan for 200,000, we're basing it on the business being able to pay back that 15,000, 20,000 a year in principal and interest on that loan. So we're looking to see the bottom line of the business if they qualify. So we're looking at tax returns, we're looking at a P&L and a balance sheet to say this business can afford this additional debt of 15,000 a year. So if the company makes 40,000 a year, the bottom line, it can afford to pay 15,000 a year in additional debt, whether they're buying equipment, you know, a new Bobcat for a landscape or something. So we look at tax returns
So
to,
you make a judgment call. and
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't have an appraisal to go by, you're just
No.
making a judgment call.
yeah. I mean, judgment call based on cash flow.
Yeah.
This has been really wonderful with the two of you, and it's really, and I don't think you met before tonight.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. We've never had the pleasure of sitting on a
Impressive.
couch.
No.
No, they're too great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for lending both your expertise.
Best in the field, both of them.
Yeah, really.
Absolutely. We only bring the best on our
Yeah.
show.
Thank you so much.
So
for
Camille's gonna wrap up. like
Okay,
she
well, thank you
does.
so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And if somebody wants to have a book,
Yeah, just come see me over at the table.
okay, very good.
Yeah, and remember,
It's a quick read. And so I just want to thank the viewers who are not here tonight for watching the show, and for, of course, the people who are here tonight, thank you. And we look to you if you have questions about tonight's topics, or if you have any other questions or ideas for future shows, please be sure to let us hear from you, because this is how we get
we do
our
live
ideas.
at the schools too.
Yes.
Besides live at the library.
That's right.
Live at the churches, live at the we're live everywhere.
We're live, we're
Yes. Okay, so.
All
remember.
right, so thank you very much, and let us hear from you, because remember, this is your show, the law, your money,
And you.
Okay, let's go.